If you found this video, there's probably a reason for it. Take a moment, just settle in. You don't need to force anything here. This might not be for everyone, but if it resonates, you'll feel it somewhere quiet in your chest. Let's take a look at what's coming through for you. I feel like something is being placed in your hands, not all at once. More like a slow offering. A message, a truth, maybe even a role you didn't realize you were stepping into. I see you in that space between reaching and receiving, and it feels tender, because part of you has been waiting for this without fully admitting it. There's something about the image of a hand extending through an opening, passing something solid, something weighty into open palms. Not a gift in the easy sense, more like responsibility, more like being trusted with something that matters. And here's the thing, I don't think this is coming from nowhere. I feel like you've been circling this moment for a while. You've been learning, watching, sensing that something was shifting even if you couldn't name it. There may be a person involved or a conversation or one small moment that changes the tone completely. Because once this reaches you, you can't really pretend you didn't feel it. I'm starting to see something shift, not outwardly, but in how they're holding things now. There's something here about counting. Not just numbers, but moments, decisions. What they gave versus what they took. It feels quiet, almost controlled. Like they're sitting with it, but not fully letting themselves feel it all the way through. And this is where it gets heavier. Because it's not clean guilt. It's more selective. They'll land on one thought, sit with it, then move away before it goes too deep. You might feel that, like they're aware but only in pieces. I keep getting this sense of almost understanding. Not exactly regret, more like realizing something didn't turn out the way they thought it would. There's a pause here, a hesitation, like they're watching the outcome instead of stepping into it. And at the same time, there's a kind of quiet calculation happening. Small adjustments, replaying certain choices. Not to fix it, more to make sense of how they got here without fully owning it. You can almost feel the repetition in their mind. Same thoughts looping, stopping just before it reaches something real. And this is where it becomes clear. This wasn't just about what they were doing. It's about what you were feeling and quietly setting aside. I'm starting to see what this is really about. You sensed something early on. Not in a loud, obvious way, more like a soft pull, a hesitation you couldn't explain. But then something else would come in, a moment of closeness, a kind word just enough to smooth it over. You already know this in a way. You kept choosing to see the version of them that felt safe to hold on to, not all at once. But it's there, that pattern of giving them the benefit of the doubt even when something inside you felt slightly off. Like holding a full glass water spilling over, but still trying to steady it instead of setting it down. And this isn't new. You keep coming back to that same feeling. The moment where your intuition spoke, but you softened it, adjusted it, made it easier to carry, because part of you wanted it to be real in the way it was presented. And now, as everything else starts to surface, you can feel the difference between what you were shown and what you actually knew underneath it. Not sharply, but enough that you can't quite go back to not seeing it. And this is where it stays with you. Because when you look back, there's a certain pattern in how they showed up. Not loud, not obvious, but consistent. I'm picking up on something here that feels measured. Like they were aware of how things were unfolding, but not fully inside it the way you were. There's a kind of distance in their thinking, even in moments that felt close. You've noticed this before. The way certain things didn't quite match. Words that felt right, but timing that felt off. Effort that came in waves, then pulled back. And it hasn't really gone anywhere, that feeling. It keeps coming back, like something sitting there not moving. You try to understand it differently, give it context, soften it, but it still feels the same underneath. There's something about intention here, not necessarily cruel, but controlled. Like they were deciding how much to give, how much to reveal, how far to go. And you felt that, even if you didn't fully let yourself name it at the time. And this is where it becomes harder to ignore. Because when you hold all of that together, it doesn't quite feel accidental anymore. It just stays there, quietly, waiting for you to see what it really was. And this is where it starts to shift. Not in what happened, but in how it sits inside you now. It doesn't feel as heavy in the same way. I'm noticing something here. Like the tension that kept pulling at you before isn't gripping as tightly. The questions are still there, but they're quieter. You're not chasing them the same way. It's more like letting them be. You're starting to see it differently now. Not all at once, but it's happening. The connection itself feels less tangled even if it hasn't fully disappeared. Like something that was tightly wound is slowly loosening. Not undone, just not as constricting. And there's still a thread here. It hasn't completely gone. But it feels different. Softer, less reactive. More like something you can observe instead of something that controls how you feel. You don't react to it the same way now. There's a kind of quiet understanding settling in that what you felt was real. But what they gave wasn't always aligned with that. And instead of trying to force those pieces to match, you're starting to let them sit as they are. And that changes something, even if you're not fully aware of how much yet. And this is where you start to notice something. Not about them this time, but about how you've been holding all of this. Not in a heavy way, but it's there. There's something here about staying, even when part of you already understood. Not just staying in the connection, but staying in the questions. The replaying, the trying to piece it together in a way that finally makes it make sense. You might recognize this part. That need to fully understand before you let go. Like if you can just get the full picture, then something inside you will settle completely. And it makes sense why. Because what you gave wasn't surface level. It had depth. It had intention. So of course there's a part of you that wants clarity to match that. Something solid to stand on. But I'm seeing a pattern here. Subtle but consistent. You've carried things longer than they were meant to be carried, hoping that holding on to them would somehow bring resolution. Like sitting with something familiar, even if it no longer fits the same way. And this isn't about blame. It's more like a reflection you're starting to see more clearly now. That part of you that doesn't easily release, even when you already know. And this is where you start to notice a pattern. Not in one moment, but in how things kept unfolding between you. It doesn't happen exactly the same way, but it feels similar. I'm picking up on this push and pull, where something would open, feel close, almost real, and then it would scatter. Not directly, not in a way you could point to easily, but enough that you felt it shift. You've been here before, in some way. That feeling of connection followed by confusion, of something being shared then quietly pulled back, and you responding the same way each time, trying to steady it, trying to understand it, trying to bring it back to what it felt like just moments before. It shows up differently, but the feeling is the same. And underneath that, I'm starting to see something they didn't show. Not absence of feeling, but instability within it. Like they felt something real but couldn't hold it in a consistent way. So it came out uneven, intense then distant, present then unsure. And that created this loop where you kept meeting them in those moments of closeness only to find yourself back in that same place again. Not because you missed something, but because it kept repeating. And this is where it starts to make sense. Not in a big, overwhelming way, but you can feel something settling into place. There's a reason this kept coming back. I'm starting to see that what felt confusing before, wasn't random. It wasn't just inconsistency for no reason. There's something here about avoidance, about not wanting to fully face what was real, so it stayed half-formed, half-spoken. Not just from them, but in the space between you. You're starting to understand it differently, that the connection was being handled in a way that kept things from becoming fully clear, like something being redirected, or quietly pushed aside whenever it got too close to something real. And that's why it looped, because nothing was ever fully addressed. It just shifted shape, came back around, showed up again in a slightly different way. There's a kind of guardedness here, not fully letting you in, but not fully letting you go either. And that created this in-between space where things felt real, but never fully grounded. Not in a harsh way, just something you can see more clearly now. And when you look at it from that wider view, it starts to explain why it never quite settled the way you needed it to, and why something in you is just now beginning to understand what was really happening underneath it. And this is where it starts to loosen. Not because you decided it had to, but because something in you understands it differently now. You're not holding on to it the same way anymore. There's still awareness there. You can still see what happened, how it unfolded, but it doesn't pull on you the same way. It doesn't ask for your energy in the way it used to. And this is where something shifts quietly. Because what's coming back around for them, you're no longer trying to track it, control it, or make sense of it in real time. It's like your hands opening, not all at once, but enough. You might notice this. Moments where you would have gone deeper into it before, but now you pause. You step back, not out of avoidance, just because it doesn't feel as necessary to carry it through anymore. And because of that, there's space, what's unfolding for them. It's happening whether you hold on to it or not. And something in you is starting to trust that you don't need to stay tied to it for it to balance itself out. And as that settles, something just lifts a little. Not everything, but enough to feel the difference. And in that space, there's something new beginning to open, even if you don't fully see it yet. And this is where things start to shift, not in a loud way, but in how everything sits around you now. You're not in the same place anymore. There's a kind of distance that's formed. Not cold, not detached. Just enough space to see things without being pulled into them. And that changes how this all moves through you. But there's still something here. I'm noticing this feeling. Like you've stepped slightly outside of it, and now you can see another layer that wasn't as clear before. Not just what happened, but what it stirred in you. What it opened. It doesn't feel finished. More like something just beyond this point. Waiting. And this is where it gets interesting. Because even though you've loosened your grip, even though something has already shifted, there's still a quiet pull. Not back into the same cycle, but forward into something you haven't fully seen yet. Like a door opening. Just enough to notice the light on the other side. You're not where you were, but you're not fully through it either. There's something deeper here. Something still unfolding beneath the surface. Let's see what else is coming through. And this is where things start to shift. Not because everything is resolved, but because you're moving differently within it. You're not in the same place anymore. There's a sense here of forward motion. Not rushed, not forced. Just something in you that doesn't stay paused in the same way. Where before you might have lingered, turned it over again and again. Now there's a part of you that moves through it. Not completely free of it, but not stuck in it either. And that's important, because even though there's still something here, something just beyond this, it doesn't feel like it holds you in place anymore. It feels more like something you can pass through. There's a clarity starting to form, quick, subtle, like a thought that comes in and you trust it without needing to question it as much. And this is where the energy changes. Not into closure, but into movement, like a door opening. And instead of hesitating, you feel yourself stepping toward it. Even if you don't fully know what's on the other side yet, you've shifted. And there's still something deeper here, something you haven't fully seen. I want to pull a few oracle messages for you. There's a quiet steadiness settling in now, almost like that tangled line around a soft center, where things used to feel reactive, but now they don't move as easily. You might notice this in small moments, like when something reminds you of them, and instead of spiraling into it, you just pause and let it pass. Not forcing yourself to feel differently. It just doesn't take over the same way. There's something about how you're holding yourself now. More contained, more aware. Like your energy isn't spilling outward trying to figure everything out. Even when a thought comes up, you don't chase it as far. You let it exist, and then it settles. And this shows up in real life more than you realize, in the way you don't rush to check. Don't feel that same urgency to revisit. Don't need to prove anything to yourself about what it was. It's quieter than that. Something inside you already knows where your peace is, and you're starting to stay there more often, even if part of you is still adjusting to how different that feels. It's showing up again in a different moment, like those soft watercolor edges, where you expect to feel pulled back in but you don't respond the same way. Something happens, maybe a memory, maybe a message, maybe just a passing thought. And instead of leaning into it, you stay where you are a little longer. There's less urgency now. You don't reach for it as quickly. You don't feel that same need to hold on to the connection just to keep it alive in your mind. It's almost like your energy chooses something else first, without you having to think about it. And it repeats in small ways. In conversations where you would have over-explained before, but now you keep things simple. In moments where you would have checked, wondered, or tried to read into something, but instead you just let it be what it is. There's a quiet decision happening inside you. Not loud, not forced, just consistent. You keep choosing where your attention goes, and more often than not, it's not going back there. It lands a little differently now, like those soft ink edges spreading, where you realize this wasn't just distance or distraction. It was you choosing yourself without needing to say it out loud. You can feel it in how certain things don't reach you the same way anymore. Not because you're blocking it, but because it genuinely doesn't fit where you are now. There's a quiet awareness in that, where you see that you weren't just reacting less. You were shifting your focus entirely, almost without noticing when it happened. And it clicks here. This isn't about them fading out. It's about you becoming more present with what actually feels right for you. That subtle redirection of your attention, it wasn't random. You've been moving yourself out of something that no longer aligned, gently, consistently, without needing closure to do it. And now that you see it, it's hard to unsee. It shows up in how you handle the moments that used to pull you in, like those light branches overhead, where something gets triggered but you don't follow it all the way down anymore. You feel it briefly. And instead of reacting, you let it pass through without needing to turn it into a full story. There's a different kind of pause now. Not the kind that holds tension, but one that lets things move on their own. You don't rush to respond. You don't feel that same pressure to explain yourself or clear the air. It's quieter than that. Even when something surfaces, a memory, a feeling, a thought that used to linger, it doesn't stay as long. You let yourself feel it without needing to fix it or figure it out immediately. And that changes how you move. Decisions feel simpler. Boundaries happen without buildup. You step away from things sooner, not because you're trying to protect yourself, but because it just feels natural now. Something in you has already adjusted, and it's steady in a way that doesn't ask for effort anymore. It feels settled in a way that doesn't need to prove itself anymore. Like those wings mid-air steady, where you're not waiting for something to happen to feel okay. You move through your day and there's less checking, less questioning, more space between you and what used to pull at you. You didn't lose the connection. You stopped needing to hold it together. There's a quiet trust in how you respond now. Not because everything is clear, but because you don't need it to be. Even when something crosses your mind, it doesn't stay long enough to change how you feel about yourself. Nothing changed overnight. You just stopped interfering with your own peace. And that shows up in the smallest ways. How you don't rush to fill silence. How you let things be unfinished without discomfort. How you move forward without needing confirmation that you're allowed to. It's simple now. You're not in it the same way. And somehow, that's enough. Take whatever felt true for you here, and let the rest just pass by. Not every part is meant to fit, and that's completely okay. What matters is what you recognized in yourself while listening. I appreciate you being here and sharing your time and energy with me. These moments are always a reflection, not just of the situation, but of where you are now. If you feel called to, you're always welcome back for another reading. Until then, just stay with that sense of calm you found, and let it guide you naturally.